What if I told you that the colorful bird sitting in pet stores across America is one of the most misunderstood creatures on the entire planet? Not just smart, not just pretty, but emotionally complex, mentally powerful, and in some ways, dangerously close to being human. We're talking about parrots. And no, I'm not talking about the ones you've seen in pirate movies or the ones that say, "Polly wants a cracker." I'm talking about the real truth behind these birds. Things that scientists have only recently discovered. Things that most parrot owners don't even know. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you will never look at a parrot the same way again.
Let's start with something that might genuinely surprise you. Parrots don't just mimic words. They actually understand context. Dr. Irene Pepperberg, a scientist at Harvard University, spent over 30 years studying an African gray parrot named Alex, and what Alex could do was nothing short of remarkable. Alex could identify over 50 different objects. He could count up to 6. He understood concepts like bigger, smaller, same, and different. He could even express frustration. When researchers made mistakes, Alex would correct them. When he was tired of a task, he would say, and I quote, "wanna go back." But here is the most emotional part of this story. On the last night of his life, in September 2007, Alex looked at Dr. Pepperberg and said, "You be good. I love you. See you tomorrow." He died that night in his cage. He was 31 years old. That is not mimicry. That is a level of emotional intelligence that most animals on this planet simply do not have.
Here is something that shocks almost every American who walks into a pet store. When you buy a large parrot like a macaw or a cockatoo, you are not getting a pet for a few years. You are making a decision that could affect your children and your grandchildren. Blue and gold macaws routinely live 60 to 80 years in captivity. Some have lived past 100. There is a Moluccan cockatoo named Cookie who lived at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. He was 83 years old when he passed in 2016. He was literally older than most of the zookeepers who cared for him. This is why animal welfare experts warn that parrots are one of the most relinquished pets in America. Families fall in love with them, then realize they have made a decades-long commitment they were never prepared for. Every year, thousands of parrots are surrendered to sanctuaries across the country simply because their owners didn't know what they were signing up for. If you ever consider getting a parrot, know this: you might need to put it in your will. Now this one is truly wild. Parrots have an extraordinary ability to read emotional tone in human voices. Research published in the journal Animal Cognition found that African gray parrots can distinguish between honest and deceptive human communication. When a human pointed to a container where food was hidden, the parrot followed the cue. But when a deceptive human who had previously misled the bird pointed to a container, the parrot actively ignored them. They remember who lied to them. And here is something even more unsettling. Parrots pick up on the stress hormones in your environment. When their human companions are anxious, depressed, or going through trauma, parrots often begin to exhibit the exact same behaviors: feather plucking, repetitive rocking, screaming, loss of appetite. Veterinarians call this emotional mirroring. And it is one of the clearest signs that these birds are not just pets. They are deeply connected to the emotional world of the people around them. Here is something that most people in America have no idea about. In the wild, parrots are highly social animals that travel in flocks of sometimes hundreds of birds. They are constantly communicating. They are constantly moving. They fly up to 30 miles every single day. Now, imagine taking that kind of creature and putting it in a cage inside an apartment in Chicago or Houston or Los Angeles. That is not just boredom. That is psychological torture.
Wild parrots form pair bonds that last for life. When they lose their mate, they mourn. They cry out. Sometimes they refuse to eat. And here is something you probably have never heard of. Wild parrots have dialects. Yes, just like how people in Boston sound different from people in Texas, parrots in different regions develop different calls, different songs, and different communication patterns. Young parrots actually learn the accent of their flock. Scientists believe this is one of the strongest pieces of evidence that parrots have culture. Not instinct, culture, passed down from generation to generation.
Here is a fact that blows most Americans away. You don't have to go to South America or Africa to see wild parrots. They are already here, living in your cities. Brooklyn, New York has a thriving colony of monk parakeets that have been living in the wild since the 1960s. Miami is home to dozens of wild parrot species, including Amazons and mitered parakeets. Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Austin. These birds escaped from cargo shipments or pet stores decades ago, and instead of dying off in the American climate, they adapted. They thrived. The monk parakeets in Brooklyn build massive communal nests on power line structures, sometimes weighing hundreds of pounds, with separate rooms for different birds. These wild flocks have become such a fixture in urban American life that local communities have fought to protect them from being removed. Some cities have declared them protected species. America has wild parrots, and most Americans have no idea. Scientists studying how human language evolved have increasingly turned to one surprising source: parrots. Here is why this matters. Most animals that vocalize do so with sounds hardwired into their brains from birth. A dog doesn't learn to bark. A crow doesn't learn to caw. It simply does it. But parrots, like humans, are vocal learners. They hear a sound, they practice it, and they reproduce it. The same brain pathway that allows a human child to learn their first word appears in a remarkably similar form in parrot brains. A study published in PLOS One found that the brain regions parrots use for vocal learning are wired differently than those of songbirds. Parrots have a unique shell region in their brain, surrounding the core song learning area that no other bird has been found to possess. Researchers believe this shell region is what gives parrots their extraordinary flexibility with sound, their ability to pick up human words, phone ringtones, microwave beeps, and even entire songs. In other words, when a parrot learns your name and calls out to you from across the room, it is using a brain mechanism that is, on a fundamental level, not so different from the one you use to speak. Now I want to talk about something that most channels covering parrots will never tell you. There is a quiet crisis happening in American homes right now. The American Parrot Rescue and Sanctuary System is overwhelmed. Organizations like the World Parrot Trust estimate that there are hundreds of thousands of parrots living in inadequate conditions across the United States. The exotic bird trade, even the legal portion of it, has created a situation where millions of birds have been bred, sold, and passed from home to home, like objects. And because of their extraordinary lifespan, many of these birds outlive their first owners, their second owners, and sometimes even a third set of owners. Foster parrots in Rhode Island, the Gabriel Foundation in Colorado, and Mickaboo Companion Bird Rescue in California are just 3 of the dozens of parrot sanctuaries working around the clock to handle birds that the American pet industry was simply not built to care for long term. These are not just birds. These are creatures that bond for life, that feel loss, that remember faces and voices for decades. And thousands of them are sitting in rescue cages right now, wondering where their person went. So, let's bring this all together. Parrots are not decorations. They are not talking toys. They are not status symbols. They are intelligent, emotional, culturally rich animals that form bonds as deep as any human friendship.
They live longer than most dogs, cats, and in some cases, longer than the people who own them. The next time you see a parrot in a pet store window or a brightly colored macaw on someone's Instagram feed, remember what you learned today. Behind those brilliant feathers is a mind that remembers, a heart that feels, and a voice that has something to say, if we are willing to listen. If you found this video fascinating, share it with someone who loves animals. And if you want more videos like this about the hidden worlds of creatures living right alongside us, subscribe and hit the bell. We have a lot more coming. See you in the next one.